Hi, today we're going to be discussing some general setup and usage tips for the Laser NAVC-818SHD crash cam. Okay, first of all, you're going to need one of these micro SD cards. We've got a class 10 one here, 32 gig. We really recommend a class 10 UHS card. You can see the more details about which one you need in the instruction manual, but I recommend 16 gig and up cards, so that you're able to make a few recordings. Now the card is going to go into this slot here on the side with the label side facing out. You want to push that in till it clicks. Okay, and to get it out you want to just push it in with your fingernail until it pops out. Okay. So here you have the power button. You want to go ahead and turn it on with this. Now the on-screen icons here correspond to the buttons below. So the stop here, we're going to, because at the moment it's recording, as soon as you put in a micro SD card it'll start recording, so you just want to stop that so we can go into the menu. Okay, now in the menu, the video resolutions is going to default to this one, which I would recommend. That's your preferred resolution and screen type. Okay, so you want to have it on the maximum resolution so that the images are clear. Okay, so just go ahead and use that function there. And the cycle record function basically allows the device to overwrite older files. So once the memory fills up, the device will actually overwrite older files, and this allows the device to sort of continue recording. So with this function here, you want to probably set it to the maximum increment, which is the 5 minutes. Okay, that just allows for less files on your card that are a longer duration, so 5 minutes. Motion detect function basically will detect any motion. Okay, so that's good for if you've parked the car and you know there'll be people around your car that might scrape it or bump it or just run into it. So you want to turn that on if you've parked the car, but I would honestly recommend leaving this function off for a majority of the time, because if you're driving, obviously it's going to be detecting a lot of motion. It's just going to create a lot of files. So the problem with this function here is the recordings that it creates cannot be overwritten by the cycle record function. So if the device has gone ahead and made a whole bunch of motion detect videos, the card is just going to fill up very quickly, and you're going to get a lot of card full error messages. So you really only want to set this function on if you've parked the car in an unsafe place, and that's really it. That's pretty much the only time I'd be using it. I literally do not use it at all. And the same with park mode. So the park mode basically detects any bumps to your vehicle once the vehicle has been parked. Again, these recordings that are created by park mode cannot be overwritten by the cycle record function, so I'd really go ahead and leave that function off. Okay. The image quality is just used for the quality of the images when you take photos with the device, so just go ahead and put that on the maximum so that your images are nice and clear. The mic setup basically determines if the device will record sounds, so you want to have that on. The stamp setting will put some basic information on your videos, such as the date, time, and the driver ID, which you can set up here. Okay. Just turn those settings off and on to your desired setting. And the G sensor, now the G sensor works very similar to park mode, except it's while the vehicle is moving, so it'll detect any bumps that the vehicle will encounter while you're driving. This setting is very sensitive and will create a lot of files and recordings that again cannot be overwritten by the cycle record function, so I'd really go ahead and leave this one off. I mean, the camera should be detecting, recording anything that's in front of you anyway, so you don't really need this setting. And the white balance, EV bias, they're just pro video settings that you don't really need. The language, self-explanatory, time setup. The button sounds just determine whether or not these buttons make sounds when you press them. The alert sounds is basically a function that will alert you to things like speed cameras, school zones, going over the speed limit, etc. I like to have the function off. You can set that to your desired level. The alert tolerance basically is for when you start going over the speed limit. So if you, for example, go 3 k's over, the device will alert you once you're over by a certain amount. So, you know, if you have it on -3 and the speed limit's 60, for example, it'll alert you at 57 kilometers per hour. So, you know, you probably want to set this to the maximum if you're a bit of a hoon. But you know, most people just like to leave it on the 0. Okay, the auto power off setting, I really wouldn't use this at all, and make sure it's turned off, because it turns the device off after a certain amount of time, which I don't see any need for really, unless you're trying to conserve battery. The screen sleep mode, again the same, turns the screen off after a certain amount of time. You probably want to leave this one off as well. Okay, the format option basically deletes all the data on your card. So if you just want to start fresh and delete everything on the card, you go ahead and use that. Also recommend using that on the first time use. If you've bought a new micro SD card, it'll just prepare the card for use. Okay, let's go back to where I was. Okay, so the card volume, don't need to worry about that. The default setting option is really good for if you've changed some settings and they're not really desirable and you want to reset the device back to how it was from the factory. That's good. So that's also good if you want to, if the device is playing up for some reason and you just want to, reset it. That's a good option to use. Driver time warning, don't need to worry about that. The map direction, zoom level, these, don't worry about these. And finally, the version info just tells you the software version, which you can update from our website, the firmware. That's the latest one at the time of this recording. So, okay, so there is another menu. So if you tap the menu button once and then twice, it'll go into a second menu, which you can see here, which allows you to delete individual files or playback files. Okay, and that pretty much concludes our recording. Thank you.